You also will have to pay for your septic tank permit too, because who gives a fuck if any of this makes any damn sense? We're just trying to fuck you over, we're trying to rob you, and then when you leave the house out there, that'll allow our fucking Nazi friends to take your shit. To the extent the Smiths believe they have a property interest in a specific permitting procedure, they are mistaken. It is well established that an entitlement to nothing but procedure cannot be the basis for our property interest. Teagan v. Renfro. Substantive due process. The due process clause contains a substantive component. How far are we in? Why is this already going back to a minute? Oh, man. The due process clause contains a substantive component that bars certain governmental actions regardless of the fairness of the procedures used to implement them. Local governments enjoy broad latitude in regulating zoning and property uses. Schanzenbach v. Town of Opal. And so courts will find a zoning ordinance violates due process only if it's clearly arbitrary and unreasonable, having no substantial relation to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. The county's procedure passes this test. The county could reasonably conclude that withholding permits until after inspection would allow it to better ensure that septic systems meet health and safety standards. That is not to say that the county's procedure is beyond criticism. The Smiths argue, for example, that the procedure would force them to violate state law by installing a system without a permit, and that the procedure, in fact, jeopardizes groundwater. But our task is not to decide if the county uses the best possible procedure. We decide only whether its procedure remains within the wide boundaries set by due process. It does. In their reply brief, the Smiths contend that we should evaluate the county's procedure under strict scrutiny. But the Smiths waived this argument by omitting it from their opening brief. See White v. Chafin. Even so, the Smiths dispute that we should treat the permitting procedure as an official county policy. Strict scrutiny. Well, we need to have strict scrutiny on this, so that's another thing that we need to write down. Even so, the Smiths dispute that we should treat the permitting procedure as an official county policy. In their view, the procedure amounts to nothing more than Miss Medina's personal edicts. Even if that were true, however, they still failed to plead a due process violation. Only the most egregious executive action violates substantive due process. See Onyx. It is not enough even to intentionally or recklessly cause injury through the misuse or abuse of power. To violate due process, executive actions must demonstrate a degree of outrageousness and a magnitude of potential or actual harm that is truly conscious shocking. Whatever we might think about the wisdom of the permitting process, it does not shock the conscience. It shocks my fucking conscience. All right, we'll allow you to build a septic tank and we'll give you permission for free, but if you want to build a house, then you have to pay for the septic tank permit after it's done. In the meantime, you got to stay in California, you got to stay in South Carolina, you got to stay in Florida. And then while you're staying in Florida, Kenny Capon is going to burn down your house, he's going to steal your fucking wood stove, he might even take your damn septic tank. If you stay there, well, they're going to kill your dog, they're going to do drive-by shootings at you. Ann Kelly and Michael Gonzalez doesn't give a fuck about planning and zoning, they don't give a fuck about the truth. So while the government is raping you on the left-hand side, well, the local Nazi right-wing sovereigns are going to rape you on the left-hand side. That shocks the conscience if you got a fucking conscience. The takings clause. The takings clause establishes that private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation. Amendment 5, the paradigmatic taking requiring just compensation is a direct government appropriation or physical invasion of private property. Lingo v. Chevron, USA. The defendants dispute that the procedure conflicts with state law. We need not resolve this dispute, however, because doing so would not affect the outcome of the Smiths' constitutional claims. In some cases, however, a government regulation may be so onerous that its effect is tantamount to a direct appropriation or ouster. Such regulatory takings may require compensation. Ibid, Lingo v. Chevron, 2005. Lingo v. Chevron. One way a regulation can affect a taking is by depriving an owner of all economically beneficial use of her property. The county's permitting procedure has not imposed a taking in that way. The Smiths failed to allege facts supporting the conclusion that they lost all economically beneficial use of the property. A regulatory action can also amount to a taking under factors identified in Penn's Central Transportation Company versus the City of New York, 1978. The factors include the regulation's economic impact on the plaintiff, the extent to which the regulation interferes with investment-backed expectations, and the character of the government's action. At bottom, the Penn central factors reflect an inquiry hinging in large part on the magnitude of a regulation's economic impact and the degree to which it interferes with legitimate property interest. So they need to have a standard protocol. They need to have a consistent due process. You do steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you get to build a house and live in Costilla County. They don't have a consistent due process. They are fucking shysters. They are a bunch of fucking thieves. And I don't know if they can refile this fucking case, which they should try, and say they got denied equal protection, because I'll bet you 99% of Costilla County, if you live there, you're not obeying motherfucking goddamn the fucking planning and zoning. I bet you Ann Kelly and motherfucking Michael Gonzalez, if they have property there, aren't in compliance with it. Seventh Amendment, if any matter that's over $20, you have a right to a jury trial. Any civil matters, that's the Seventh Amendment. So you could take the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. You could also sue them under the 14th Amendment Due Process Clause through the 7th Amendment. So that would be what? The procedural or substantive due process? Some due process. Just take the Due Process Clause to the 7th Amendment. I don't understand the Takings Clause if they haven't taken their land yet. Which, that's another part. As soon as you quit paying your taxes, then they'll take your fucking land. So, make sure you keep on paying your taxes. Then I guess you get to keep your land, and therefore there's a potential for, economic benefit later on somewhere down the line. It makes no sense to get a permit after it's finished. Hey, do I have permission? Yes, for free. But if you want further permission, you better pay me for the permit for the first permission, and then you'll get the second permission. Permits in cities to hold a peaceful assembly, to give speeches, government, pass the inspection at the end. That's how they should do it. You pay for the permit, you get the damn septic tank, and then there's an inspection at the end. That's what makes fucking sense. Colleen Romero she's a fucking thief. They are stealing ass, thieving ass motherfuckers. And because the damn government is a bunch of criminals, that means you have to be a criminal if you're a citizen. That's the only way